Paul ran as a Libertarian back in 1988 and sought the Republican nomination 4 years ago. We spoke. He was in New Hampshire. You ran for the Republican nomination back in 2008. You spent $34 million and got in the ballpark of 40 delegates. What makes you think this time will be any different?
The world's completely different. This country is different. We've gone through an economic crisis, and the wars are persistent. People's attitudes about the persistent wars overseas have changed. They're ready to bring our troops home, and we can't afford it anymore. The issue of the Federal Reserve is a top issue. It's been brought to attention because of the financial crisis, and there's more and more people that are understanding that you just can't print money and create wealth. So all the issues are coming in the direction that I've been talking about for so long, and the growth of the freedom movement is gigantic compared to where it was 4 years ago.
Yet, if you look at the public opinion polling, Ron Paul has not advanced all that much. Late in the 2008 campaign, CNN polled, and Ron Paul had 6% support among Republicans. We just recently polled, asking Republicans what they thought for a nominee in 2012. Ron Paul was 6 people down at 10%. 6% at the end of 2008, only 10% now. Doesn't look like Republicans are looking at you all that much differently.
It's better, and the crowds are better. But remember, this is the first day of the campaign. It's a year to go. So no, I think things are definitely much better. The enthusiasm is there, and the attitudes are different, and the problems we have are so overwhelming that I think the support is going to be greatly increased over 4 years ago.
Let's take a look at some of the issues for somebody watching out there. I'll ask them to imagine Ron Paul were president today, and let's have some of the issues the president of the United States is dealing with today and how you might deal with them similarly or differently. And let's start with the raid in Pakistan that led to the death of Osama bin Laden. Would you have ordered that raid, U.S. troops secretly going into Pakistan without the knowledge of the Pakistani government, essentially violating Pakistani sovereignty? The President of the United States does not dispute that, to get bin Laden.
No, I've said I didn't like that process. I don't know all the details on how necessary it was to do it that way, but no, I think there should be respect for sovereign nations. If bin Laden had been in Canada and Montreal, we wouldn't have done it. We would have respected it. To assume that Pakistan would never cooperate is an incorrect assumption, because they have helped us capture about 15 bad actors and have been sent over here that we have tried and imprisoned and actually executed. So there's no reason to assume that we shouldn't show them respect.
Right here at home, we're watching the power of the mighty Mississippi as it makes its way south. It is flooding communities from Tennessee, Mississippi, making its way now into Louisiana. We've had tornadoes in recent days as well. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is working overtime. In a Ron Paul administration, would that agency exist, or is that something that should be done by the states?
You know, it's a rather new one. You know, the biggest hurricane, the most devastating hurricane we've ever had hit in my district into Galveston in the year 1900. There was no FEMA, and they recovered in a fairly good period of time. They rebuilt the city and built a seawall, and it was taken care of. It's like, you know, if we don't have federal bureaucrats and if we don't run up the deficit higher, that we wouldn't solve any of these problems. So yes, we could get along without FEMA. I've gotten more complaints about FEMA in my district, and I don't vote for FEMA, and I get reelected, and they complain about FEMA coming in and taking over and getting in the way of volunteer property owners and volunteer groups, the Red Cross, going in and want to help. So yes, this idea that we should accept the notion that a federal bureaucracy that spends money they don't have, doing things that they aren't properly authorized to do, and say that it's sacred, that you can't even criticize it, well, it just doesn't work. You're
going to face a vote in the House of Representatives soon, and you would certainly face the issue of the debt if you were elected President of the United States. I want you to listen here. This is the Fed Chairman, Ben Bernanke, a man with whom you've had many differences, essentially saying the House and the Senate, the Congress, needs to give the government the authority to raise more money, to borrow more money, or else. Listen here.
The worst outcome would be one in which the financial system was again destabilized, as we saw following Lehman, for example, which, of course, would have extremely dire consequences for the U.S. economy.
Is the Fed Chairman right?
No, he's wrong. He was wrong when he said there was no housing bubble, and he was wrong when he said $3 trillion of Fed credit will take care of these problems. And he said there would be a depression if we didn't do the bailout. Of course, there wasn't a depression on Wall Street. They're doing rather well, but there was a depression with the people. They lost their jobs. We have a severe recession, depression. People are losing their houses. So, yes, he's wrong. He says it would be harmful because we can't stand to default. But we unfortunately have defaulted many times. We did it in the Depression. We did it in 1971. We constantly renege on paying our bills when it was on a gold standard. So the default, though, is going on regardless. He wants to default.
If Ron Paul were not running for the Republican nomination, who would he vote for?
No, I haven't thought that through. I don't know if they have all announced yet.
We'll find out in the coming days and weeks, and we'll see Congressman Ron Paul on the campaign trail soon. Sir, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.